it was wild, man. So I did that for like eight. I was an adjuster for 8 years, and then I got promoted. I applied for a supervisor job. And we moved around. We were in LA, and I went to Arizona. We always
Okay.
State Farm. Went to Atlanta. Then I moved back to for Fresno, California, and I got promoted to supervisor. Right, they promoted me to a supervisor over the clerical staff. So
Okay.
it's me, a black man managing a bunch of ladies, white ladies, Hispanic.
Wow.
Nobody looked like me, man. So I'm managing them, and that was different because working with women, being black, just the culture. Remember we talked about I had the code switch.
Right. Explain what you meant by that. Explain it, man.
So you know how we talking now, like homeboy, homie, ain't
Right.
when I got with State Farm, we were in student ties, so I had to pronounce my words better and not use some of the words that I grew up using, saying y'all, ain't. I would have to say I can't. I would have to pronounce my words, and then even sometimes, you know, how they already perceive us being aggressive, right? They think we just angry. So there were times where I would have to like lower my tone and not have so much bass in my voice
Wow.
if I'm something that was bothering me, just to bring it down and not come across being this aggressive black man as they say we are. But so that was I had to code switch and then let them know that I can speak regular English just like you guys were, just like we were taught. But there were times where outside of work, hanging out with them, I was able to let down some of my some of the code switching. But that's
It's defined as the ability to switch between languages in a single conversation. It's called code switching, and we all do it to some degree. For instance, you may speak more casually at home the way you do at work. But for black people, code switching is far more complex and can often be taxing. Some would argue the ability to do it well is a prerequisite to success.
You want to make some money here? Use your white boys.
Code switching is something many black people are all too familiar with.
Hey, Mr. Kramer, this is Langston from Regalview.
As soon as we hear someone speak, our minds automatically make associations about where they're from geographically. We also make assumptions about their education level, their income level.
Miles Durkee has done extensive research on racial code switching as an assistant professor at the University of Michigan.
Code switching, I describe it as a double-edged sword, where there's benefits and advantages, but there are also serious costs and consequences.
For example, when a black person doesn't or can't effectively code switch, the result can be damaging. Case in point, the star witness in the 2013 George Zimmerman trial.
I had told you.
Rachel Jean Tell was on the phone with Trayvon Martin moments before he was killed.
I had asked him how the man looked like. He looked like a creepy cracker.
When she spoke in court, it was clear the 19-year-old's testimony was largely being judged on her mannerisms and style of speaking. Ultimately, George Zimmerman walked free.
They have even said, that it's a survival technique,
Yes.
and maybe it's saved their lives in some situations.
Interacting with the police is a clear example where code switching can be the difference between life or death. If an officer already perceives a black male as threatening, code switching is an extremely effective way to help alleviate some of that anxiety.
But code switching is not just in the way a person speaks. It can also involve your entire behavioral profile, from hairstyles to clothing and the way in which you carry yourself. Former President Barack Obama's effective ability to code switch has been well documented.
And you go through a whole game?
When he was meeting the Dream Team, and you can see his handshake differs simply based on the race of who he's, greeting. So you see with white individuals in the coaching staff, it's a very standard, American handshake. But when it's black players on the team, he's more like dapping it up with the players.
For many black people, though, constantly focusing on changing themselves in order to make white people feel comfortable can be exhausting and unhealthy.
Those who tend to code switch more frequently also report significantly more workplace fatigue and burnout from their current positions, simply because they have to be a different person and mask all the cultural assets that they probably value and appreciate internally, but they realize that those same traits aren't valued in their workplace.
And while it can be exhausting, Omari Keels wouldn't go so far as to call it inauthentic because he says it's such a huge part of the Black American experience.
I don't see it as a burden anymore. I just see it as something that is a part of who I am, a part of how I navigate this world.
You're aware that this is...
Shawnice Battle says she didn't always know what it was called, but first noticed code switching at a very young age.
I just know when my mom spoke to certain people, she did it. And when my friends in school spoke to certain people, they did it. I just thought it was a part of being an adult, not like this thing that was specific to my race.
Do you feel that it is an authentic part of you, or that you're not being authentic when you use that voice?
So I think that is definitely a question that I've grappled with and thought about for a really long time. Because especially when I initially found out what it was, I'm like, oh my God, this is not me. I'm just switching because I'm in this environment and I'm using this completely different voice. And this is not who I am at all.
Also, for the person whose code switching is always activated, it still sometimes isn't enough to overcome racism. So what can we do, especially in the workplace, to make sure marginalized groups can be their authentic self?
We also need representation all the way up hierarchical ladder of leadership in the organization as well, where individuals from underrepresented backgrounds can start to have a voice to start to dictate what that corporate culture looks like.
And Dr. Durkee continues his research on code switching, including the psychological implications. We put a link to his latest presentation on our website. Just go to click on Detroit.com.
That was my life with State Farm. I got promoted right after my first supervisor job. 6 months later, I got promoted again to manager, right, to a higher level. But guess where it was in? I wanted to go out to Westlake and Thousand Oaks because I knew all those folks out there. I worked with them. They sent me to Fox Hills.
Oh, wow.
And so I moved from Fresno. I moved to Porter Ranch, and then but I drove to Fox Hills to Culver City every day because most of the people at Fox Hills were all Black. So that's where they tended to put all the Black employees was in that one building. So I'm managing the team of like women and men that look like me. It was crazy.
Okay. So was that, so now when you were managing the Blacks, did you still have to code switch, or were you you were more comfortable and able to speak a little more freely?
Well, I was more still had to be professional when it was in the group, but when we had our team individual meetings or at lunch and stuff, was able to let it down, just talk the way we talking now. Okay. but we all did it. It wasn't just me. We all
of course.
We knew the game.
So now, dang, how do you? So being a Black man in that corporate environment, there is a certain, would you call it pressure to have to code switch or assimilate into who you're around, or is it a pressure to do that, or do you just know that this is what you need to do in order to keep the respect of the people around you?
I think you just know. I mean, for me, I just knew because, playing sports, and then, we had different people, Mexican, white people, Black people being bused, from Pakoima, Lake Terrace out to Granada Hills and Chatsworth. So I was around different groups of people anyway. And then, so it was just how it was. And my parents, they would tell me, hey, well, they prepared me, and would told me like, hey, when you go around these folks, the way you are in the house, you're gonna have to speak a certain way. And so, and I had friends, Jewish friends, Iranian, all my friends were that we were cool with. And so it wasn't pressure. The pressure was knowing that I had to work harder to get like a promotion. I had to work harder to than compared to somebody who was white, a white man or a white woman, right? I had to work harder and make sure my results were like here in order to to make sure I'm getting great raises and promoting stuff like that.
So now in today's in today's environment, especially with like you got Trump in office, you got Charlie Kirk who just got killed, and it was this big thing about DEI hires and things like that. Would you consider yourself a DEI hire?
When I got hired with State Farm, remember the human resources manager was a black man, so he took care of me. And then the vice president of the state of California for State Farm, his
Mm-hmm.
name was Greg Jones.
Mm.
He was a black man.
Wow.
People thought I was related to him.
You was related to him. Wow.
So that opened that I never knew that for years until one day he brought me in. He brought me into his office. He said, "Hey, people think me and you are related." And he was in Woodland Hills, California. He brought me into his office, and he's like, and have him keep thinking that. Don't say you're not.
Don't say you're not, huh? Wow.
So
That's right. Hell yeah. That's right.
he would
So
look
how?
out for us.
So so being a black man in that environment, even though we're being told by all these different people that, oh, we're in a post-racial society and everybody's the same, and if you have a you know D DI is bringing unqualified people into the corporate realm and taking white people jobs and stuff like that. How do you feel when you hear that type of stuff going on? Like what's your thoughts on like the not Charlie Kirk getting killed, but just the things he was saying about DEI and that sort of and that stuff. Did
I
that
mean, just being in, I've hired people, and like I say, I think the best person should get the job. I mean, it's sad you had to have those programs, DEI, but then they changed that up, and DEI is more than just color now. Remember, it was people's
right.
their sexual preferences and gender. So now it wasn't only about color; it was about if you were a woman, white could be white woman, or if you were LGBT, wherever it is, if you were that. So
Right,
back
right.
then, when I was going through it,
It was
affirmative
affirmative
action.
action. It was affirmative action. Right, right, right.
Actually, it was just about. But I don't think I don't. For me, I don't think I was an affirmative action hire when I got hired. But I did see people. There were times where people that weren't qualified, and they could have been black or Mexican, weren't qualified, and they struggled doing the job. It was sad, and you knew. I mean, you knew. I saw it, and so it was. And that wasn't me. I always made sure, I'm staying on top of my stuff. They I was just that's just how I'm built. But I did see there were times where they hired this person because they had that number, whatever that check box, check that box. I did to see it.
You seen it? That's
Yep,
deep. That's
yep,
deep. That's deep.
yeah. And I used to try being a hiring manager. I would try to help our people out, right? And I would interview and I would hope, man. I was hoping they interview well, and they just it was tough. And then
He
many
wasn't ready.
wasn't ready, and I wouldn't put my name. I did one time. I did that once. Once I did that, and this dude, his name was Kenny. I was in Fresno, my first supervisory job. So I hired him like be a mail clerk, and he was terrible, missing word. He was calling in sick. But I gave him a chance. That was the time I did it. But after that, I always would hope somebody would come in that was qualified. And then, because if I had somebody that looked like me and somebody who did it, and they were equal, well, I'm picking the person who looked like me.